Good evening and welcome. This is Office Hours. I am your host. I read mainstream science and engineering news while talking about how to become an engineer in industry. You can watch Office Hours live here on YouTube. You can watch Office Hours on Rumble. I post videos right after this. And you can follow me at EngineerIDE on the X platform, formerly known as Twitter. Please like, share, and subscribe because it feeds the AI algorithm. And lastly, if you have comments and or questions, I invite you to please post them below. I would like to read them and see what you had to say. Uh, it's so good to be here. It's so good to be with you. I really do enjoy these, and I enjoy our time together. And I hope you get as much out of this, or get as much from this as I do. So, uh, yeah, being able to come in here and share my time with you and talk about science and engineering and news going on in industry is a it's a fun time for me, and uh, I hope you have questions for me because I do like to answer questions. This is office hours, by the way, so please do ask questions. You can put your comments and questions down below. Yeah, you can post them below down in the comment section. So tonight we're gonna talk about AI. Like I said last time, uh, eventually wanted to get into AI and start talking about that. Start talking about some misconceptions. Obviously, with media, they tend to blow things up. And why do they blow things up? Because that's their business model. I talk about business models a lot on this station or on this podcast. And you're going to see a little bit of that tonight. So without further ado, we'll get to our article for the evening from the Financial Review. Google Brain founder says big tech is lying about AI extinction danger. Yeah, probably. They're probably doing that. Well, are they talking about extinction through AI? Maybe. Maybe that's a framing. Maybe it's not exactly that, but maybe it's close to it. I do know that there is a lot of misconceptions about AI in industry. Well, just in general in mainstream and uh, in general, people are not helping the situation. So I'll just tell you right off that the way I view AI is I view it more like a computer. It's a tool, and it's probably going to change our lives like changed our lives, and for the better. It's going to change things for the better if it's allowed to proceed uh, as a if it's allowed to evolve as a technology, and people continue to have access to it, which they will. I mean, if you study mathematics or computer science, uh, software engineering, computer engineering, data science, you'll have access to AI. And so people, it's like trying to take mathematics away from people because AI is built on top of mathematics, and I won't get into the nuts and bolts of it. But basically, everything we have underneath that, the foundation of everything is mathematics. But that's a topic for another day. Just thought I'd give you a little bit of context. So, yeah, this article was written recently, October 30th, so just a couple days ago, written by John Davidson, columnist with the Financial Review, I believe. Is this Financial? Yep, Financial Review. So there we go. All right, big key points to, I guess, consider. It's nice of them to put those key points while going through this article. Big tech wants tough AI rules that would make life hard for small competitors. Yes, yes, indeed. Um, all big companies want to do that. All big companies eventually want to corner the market, and it's the way of the world. It's why we supposedly have monopoly laws in this country. so that way large companies aren't cornering the market and taking out the competition. It, in theory, it's supposed to work. It's worked a couple times. If you're familiar with, uh, let's see, well, not Ford, it would have been Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller, and Standard Oil. Yeah, that's where I was going with this. So Standard Oil used to be one of the largest companies in the United States back in the 19th century. Many people would argue that uh, John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, and a couple others, a couple other names that I can't think of at the moment, were men who built the United States because of their technologies. And so what happened in the uh, early 20th century? Standard Oil had a monopoly in the market. They sold lamp oil, so they're basically lighting America, and the United States government broke them up into different companies. And I believe the companies today are five of the six largest oil companies in the world are actually Standard Oil. So Chevron, 76, I believe. Let's see, Mobil, Exxon. Those were all at one time Standard Oil. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, I believe it's on Amazon. It's a miniseries called "The Men Who Built America." So as engineers, future scientists, future mathematicians, that'd be a good series for you to watch to learn more about. Um, well, one, how the United States was built technologically. So you're talking about, in comparison, you're talking about the at the time, these business owners, they were the equivalent of, let's say, John D. Rockefeller was like the equivalent of Elon Musk. Well, not the equivalent, but if you could think of somebody if you want to equate a person to a person, that'd be a good comparison. Andrew Carnegie, maybe Jeff Bezos. And by the way, these companies, uh, John D. Rockefeller did compete against Andrew Carnegie, and Andrew Carnegie wasn't particularly fond of John D. Rockefeller because John D. Rockefeller put Andrew Carnegie's mentor out of business. I believe his name was Tom Scott. And so, anyway, it's all in that series. Good series to watch. It will remind you a lot of big tech and what's going on in the modern United States. So anyway, second point here. Got off on a tangent a little bit there. Companies like OpenAI are using fear of human extinction to bring on regulation. Third key point, what's needed is transparency, not a licensing regime. I agree with that. All right, so the article begins. The notion that artificial intelligence could lead to the extinction of humanity is a bad idea, being promulgated by big tech in the hope of triggering heavy regulation that would shut down competition in the AI market. One of the world's top AI experts warned. Yeah, I would I would suspect that is the case. Uh, when money's involved, that's going to be an incentive, and of course, that's going to uh, big tech working with government. Big tech's going to want to corner the market, right? The bigger share of the market they get, the more money they bring in, and one way they can do that is by creating regulations, regulations which they can afford, and small companies cannot afford. It's another way to look at regulations. Andrew Ng, a professor at Stanford University who taught machine learning to the likes of OpenAI co-founder Sam Altman, and who himself co-founded Google Brain and was chief scientist at Baidu's artificial intelligence group, said that the bad idea that AI could make us go extinct was merging with the bad idea that a good way to make AI safer is to impose burdensome licensing agreements, or excuse me, licensing requirements on the AI industry. Yeah, and that's probably the case. Um, Obviously, I'm showing my bias in this video, in this article, uh, and I would agree with Professor Ning on this one. Uh, Again, there's a lot of money involved, and I'm not saying people shouldn't be allowed to make money. People shouldn't be allowed to flourish. But yeah, if you're the big guy picking on the little guy, I'm actually not okay with that. If you want to compete, let's compete, right? And let the better man, let better woman, better person win. So, and then again with licensing requirements, you need, if you're going to have licensing requirements. Remember, I talked about in a few podcasts. I talked about in a second or third podcast. I can't remember which one. It was the one on Amazon. I talked about how, like, okay, robot. Amazon implements a robot, or they sorry, not implements. They uh, they add a robot to the floor. Now the robot has a job, and because the robot now has a job task to do, uh, Amazon actually needs to hire more people in order to take care of that robot, because the robot's not going to run on its own. And like licensing, if you create a licensing requirement, well, you need people to certify those requirements and enforce those requirements. So now you're going to have to hire more people for that. So that creates an industry in itself. Some people call that a bureaucracy. So just something to consider. All right, there's Professor Ning right there. As it says in his picture, Professor Andrew Ying says that the idea AI could wipe out humanity as part of a regulatory capture campaign from big tech. Yeah, because uh, it creates an advantageous situation for big tech versus small startups. So in the article quotes here, when you put those two bad ideas together, you get the massively, colossally dumb idea of policy proposals that try to require licensing of AI. Professor Ning told the Australian Financial Review in an interview. So I guess this is an Australian publication. I don't have a particular publication I take articles from. I just kind of pick articles which I think are going to be interesting. So left, right, center, uh, whatever works. And so yeah, again, I was talking about licensing. Yeah, if you're going to license, if you're going to have requirements, well, you're going to have people who are going to uh, accept that, or take in those requirements, kind of like going to the DMV. And of course, you're going to need people to enforce those requirements. And who does that help? Well, that helps big tech because they can afford it. That doesn't help the I used to quote, I'm quoting fingers here, the little guy, right? If you're a startup, well, that's one more cost that you have to consider, right? Because where do your profits come from? Your profits come from your revenues minus your costs. So it's an additional cost for you as a startup, right? It's another constraint. It's another barrier to entry, or entry to a barrier to entry. Yeah, barrier to entry. By the way, I'm not saying there shouldn't be barriers. Nothing should be easy, but it gets to a point where it gets kind of ridiculous, right? It stifles innovation. Uh, Facebook used to be a small company. Again, I think I talked about this a couple podcasts ago. Reason why uh, Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook was because he wanted to meet girls on campus at Harvard. That's why he started it. And now Facebook is obviously Meta, and Meta is designing technology that's probably going to change the world. And by the way, Facebook's already changed the world, no matter if you like it or not. And same thing with Amazon. Amazon started off as a little online book company competing against Borders and some other companies I can't remember the names of. And and today it's a almost $1 trillion company, and Amazon does some amazing things with more than 1.5 million employees, right? And so what would have happened if there had been companies that were already ahead of Facebook and companies that were already ahead of Amazon, and they had worked with the government to create regulations? Well, that would have burdened Facebook and Amazon early on, and would have increased the odds that they would have failed. They would fail, and the world wouldn't know Facebook and Amazon today. Again, these are the consequences of these types of things. Should there be reasonable regulations and requirements? Maybe. I guess as long as it doesn't hurt people. Uh, Businesses generally don't have an incentive to hurt people unless you're talking about weapons. I mean, there are companies that build weapons, so they have an incentive. But most companies don't. Most companies build stuff that actually help people. And I would argue that Amazon has greatly helped people. Now, Facebook, on the other hand, I don't know. Maybe. I, I'm not. I'm not sure. Matter of fact, I don't even know. Um, I can't say I don't know what Facebook's business model is. I'm just not sure if it's has any value. Yeah, you could say, well, Engineer IDE, clearly Facebook has value, right? It's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah, okay, I guess. I don't know. To me, Facebook doesn't have any value, but a lot of people use it. That's why it has value, and a lot of people would disagree with me on that point. And that's fine. All right, so we continue. As Professor Ning says, it would crush innovation. Yes, I agree with that. I find myself agreeing a lot with what he's saying. Uh, Professor Ning continues in the article quotes, there are definitely large tech companies that would rather not have to try to compete with open source AI. So they're creating fear of AI lead into human extinction. Yeah, because if you generate the fear, then what are people in government, people who create policy, what's their incentive? Their incentive now is to protect people. If they look like they're protecting people, well, that creates voters. There are people who are interested in voting for that. People want to be protected. That's why people vote for people in government. I wonder if you would find people. I wonder if this is the case. People who don't vote are not afraid. People? Let me rephrase this. People who don't vote don't need government to protect them. I wonder if that's a thing. People who vote need the government to protect them. I don't know. That just occurred to me. Maybe that's not even true. Uh, but I think it's an interesting thought. Maybe you disagree. If you disagree, please post in the comments below. That'd be great. All right. So, article continues with Professor Ning's quote: "It's been a weapon for lobbyists to argue for legislation that would be very damaging to the open source community." Yeah, I find myself in agreement, but I'm not sure about the lobby. I guess the lobbyists. There are lobbyists. I haven't really looked into AI lobbyists from big tech companies, but I guess that would maybe come along with big tech lobbying. Maybe that just comes along with it. We're all types of lobbyists. I mean, the open source community could also start lobbying government as well. They could do that. They could pool their funds. I don't know how they would do that, but they could do that. Article continues in May. OpenAI CEO and co-founder Altman co-signed a letter saying that mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority. Okay, well, apparently he did say that. So I didn't know for sure, but now I do. I mean, I guess I'd have to click on the link here, but I'll take the article's word for it. And then it continues. And in March, more than 1,100 industry leaders, including Elon Musk and Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak, called for a 6-month moratorium on training powerful AI models. Yeah, I remember that. That was a big thing in the news. Beyond that statement, they called for a 6-month moratorium on training. I don't know what they said beyond that. Uh, I suspect that's what they actually said because uh, news publications from across the spectrum were talking about that. So that's probably the case. Although I'm not truly sure how you would do that. But okay. All right. So the article again, quoting. I'm assuming this is Dr. Ying or Professor Ying because it's about him. Uh, Sam Altman was one of my students at Stanford. He interned with me. I don't want to talk about him specifically because I can't read his mind. That's good. But I feel like there are many large companies that would find it convenient to not have to compete with open source large language models. Yeah. And the open source community is a very large community that spans the entire software engineering and computer science network and IT network. You also have Linux operating systems, Linux distros, if you've never heard that term before, Linux distributions that support those open source communities. And there's a lot of open source communities. Python is an open source community. Uh, Linux Fedora is an open source community. Uh, let's see, Linux Ubuntu is another Linux distro that's an open source community. So there's a lot of open source communities. I guess I just named three. But yeah, and it's open source communities with programming languages, software technology, software infrastructure. Uh, and so, yeah, and there's a lot of opportunity to learn at no cost other than do you have a computer and access to the internet. So, all right, article quotes here. Okay, well, I guess I just read that one. So, article quotes, yeah, I guess they're still quoting him. There's a standard regulatory capture playbook that has played out in other industries, and I would hate to see that executed successfully in AI. I'd actually like to hear what he has to say about that. Let me read that again. They quote Professor Ning. There's a standard regulatory capture playbook that has played out in other industries, and I would hate to see that executed successfully in AI. Yeah, but I think AI is a bit more difficult to control, and I think that's a good thing. So, AI is not like a nuke. I guess I'll just say the term. It's not like a nuke, and I mean, with a nuke, there's some serious downside. There's some serious downside with that. Of course, the upside is it's great for technology. Again, there's another industry we could talk about where regulation is constraining development of nuclear power. But and by the way, if you're the type of person that believes in, um, let's say, things changing in the climate, then you should be 100% behind nuclear power because that's what gets you through. At the end of the day, that's what gets you through. None of the other stuff. I mean, a combination of the other stuff and assistance to that would be helpful, but the big gun in that motley crew is going to be nuclear energy. That's what that's going to be. And AI is going to change everything. Uh, the nuclear power plants of today are very different from what they were in the past, and that's because mechanical engineering, electrical engineering has advanced. Obviously, there's a material sciences now. Software engineering is a field, is a discipline, and that radically changes uh, internal controls of a power plant and of the energy itself. Uh, Chernobyl did not have that. People still, when they think about nuclear energy, they think about Chernobyl. That was in the 1980s. That was a long time ago. Today, technology is far superior than it was in the 1980s. Not even close. So, all right. So we continue with the article here. Professor Ning declined to comment on the risk-based regulation of AI being proposed by the Labor government, but agreed that AI should be regulated. Okay. So if I was him, I would not agree that it should be regulated, even though I think it should be. The appropriate position to take when somebody wants to do something, you should say, I don't want to do that. If you're ever in a negotiation of this caliber, right? Now, getting a job, that's different. And it being an interview, that's different. Especially if it's your first engineering job, you kind of just want to take the job and get it. That's really the most important thing. But in this case, he wants to take the opposite. And the reason why is because he's kind of already agreeing with them. Like he just said, I agree with you. Right. So they don't have to move on their position. He does. He's going to have to move towards them. They're not going to move toward him. But if he said, no, absolutely not, that's a terrible idea. It should not be regulated at all. And he has a little bit of power. Well, then they're going to have to move towards him. He'll obviously have to move towards them. But again, they can meet somewhere in the middle. And it'd be a bit more reasonable. The regulations will be a little bit more reasonable. What this is right now, it's gonna become unreasonable in my estimation, because that's usually how it works out. All right, so the article continues with the quote: I don't think no regulation is the right answer. Okay, so you just answered my question. But with the direction regulation is headed in a lot of countries, I think we'd be better off with no regulation than what we're getting. Okay, well, then that should be his position. And he shouldn't tell them that he's okay with regulation. He should not take that position. He should take the libertarian position, which is, no, I don't agree with that. I'm not going to do that. So, see, article continues. Here's quoting Dr. Ning again. But thoughtful regulation would be much better than no regulation, he said. Okay. Right. They further quoting him, just to be clear, AI has caused harm. Self-driving cars have killed people. In 2010, an automated trading algorithm crashed the stock market. Regulation has a role, but just because regulation could be helpful doesn't mean we want bad regulation. Okay, so if the technology were to lead to extinction, it would do a lot more damage than that. Now, an argument could be made, well, EngineerIDE and AI isn't all over the place and doesn't have access to certain technologies. Probably the case. That's probably the case. By the way, no regulation doesn't mean a company can't regulate it within and have controls. I mean, let me put this in simple terms. That means they can control it themselves and have some sort of process, safety process. That's not what that means, but that would just leave it up to each company. That's the position I would take if I was him. All right. High of the list of good regulations, he said, was the need for transparency from technology companies, which would have helped avert the social media disaster caused by big tech at the start of the century, and which will help avert AI disasters caused by big tech in the future. Yeah, I mean, good regulations. What does that even mean? Good regulations. I don't even know what that means. I asked 5 people what does good regulation mean. I'm gonna get 5 different answers. So I don't even know what that means. I mean, I agree with a lot of what he says. I wish he was a bit more direct. Well, direct, a bit more not confrontational, but definitely he doesn't seem like he's going to stick to his position. That's what it seems like to me. But I don't know. Maybe you disagree with that, or maybe you do agree with that. So I'm going to cut this one off here, and I'm actually going to do a second one tonight, but I'm going to take a little break, about 10 minutes or so, and then I'm actually going to try a I wouldn't say it's really a reaction video, but I'm definitely going to be doing some critiquing. It's going to be a video about AI. I actually haven't seen it yet, so you and I are going to see it for the first time. If you're watching this later, it'll be the first time for you watching it, and I'm going to give some feedback on what they talk about. I'm assuming it's going to be experts talking about the danger of AI. That's kind of what I'm getting from the video, at least the start of it. So I watched a couple seconds of it, and of course, you have the title. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. Uh, Again, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop it here. Thanks again for watching. Thanks again for listening. I do try to when I read the articles. When I go through this, I do try to read the articles in such a way that if you are actually not watching it, you can still get everything that I'm talking about. And so, like, if you're to listen to this on a podcast with no visual, there wouldn't be much difference than watching me right now. That's how I try to make these things. And so, anyway, I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to end it there, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks again for watching. Stay safe, and I will talk to you soon. All right. Take care. Have a great night.